I'm Dr. Anthony Harper here in the James Brady Press Room of the White House, and a very special day. President Trump is going to be returning later this afternoon, but here are some of the highlights and the questions that I would ask President Trump and some other of his staff, and that being what his support is of Israel's sovereignty over Judea and Samaria in light of his recent honoring Israel's sovereignty over the Golan Heights. Number two question is about the desecration of the Jewish cemetery in Vilnius, Lithuania. What he plans to do to stop this desecration. Currently, there's attempts to move that Jewish cemetery and out of disrespect and desecrated that, and that's a very key issue for a lot of Jewish people and Christians as well. And also, another issue is about President Lincoln's solution to making America great again. In light of President Trump recently entitling his new campaign, Keep America Great Again. President Lincoln, in the middle of the Civil War, 1863, which is actually, you can find that at the top of our website, imcnews.org, if you just see Lincoln's picture there and click on that. But what President Lincoln had to say was very revealing about the state of America, that not only applies then, but to nowadays for many Christians and Jewish concerns. And that is, President Lincoln made some key statements in that proclamation. And he stated, America is a nation that has forgotten God. We have become too proud and too arrogant and self-reliant. And he called it for a time of repentance for our many national sins. Now that type of language probably wouldn't be accepted very well today. If President Lincoln were alive here and were here at the White House and wanted to say those things for that proclamation to be heard, it may not be accepted. We really want to know what President Trump would think of that, for him to read that, and I know a lot of Jewish and Christian friends, all of our readers, are wanting to know what his response be to President Lincoln's some of the solutions that are so important, especially for President Lincoln and across the board. You know, our founding fathers of America did refer to some Bible verses often, and there was a key verse that President Lincoln quoted. That was from the book of Psalms. It states, "Only are those nations blessed whose God is the Lord." Now, in addition to that, there's another question, and that is about the Equality Act. The Equality Act, currently as passed by the House of Representatives, would impact would change the civil rights law to include same-sex marriage, gender issues, and this would, by many believe, would impact the religious freedoms of a lot of Christian churches, a lot of Jewish synagogues in America. So the four top issues. Now, there's another issue that relates to President Lincoln, what he had to say about the concept of repentance. There is the National Day of Prayer verse that says, 2 Chronicles 7:14, "If my people which are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and forgive their sins and heal their land." Now, this is a verse that Vice President Pence on the National Day of Prayer here at the White House avoided quoting in its entirety. And I've noticed that many of our leaders are refusing to and not quoting that verse in its entirety for some reason. The National Day of Prayer people are concerned about this as well, as many Christians and Jews throughout America and the world. So that would be another question is, would President Trump support quoting that entire verse of 2 Chronicles 7:14, which, by the way, many Christians and Jews do see that as a solution to terrorism. Specifically, that verse is a conditional verse that those things have to be met in order for God to hear and forgive sins. So a lot to think about, a lot of serious issues to deal with here in America. We got President Trump's campaign to kick off, Keep America Great. We've also got freedom of the press issues to address as well, with Jim Acosta's book titled Enemy of the People, A Dangerous Time to Report the Truth in America, in contrast to Mark Levin's book titled Unfreedom of the Press. I think both books would be good for people to read, to understand both sides of the issue. You know, freedom of the press is a very big issue to our founding fathers. There's another issue to address, and that is the persecution of Christians and Jews around the world. Now, referring to China in light of the economic plan that has been a very big deal. And I brought up with one economic advisor of President Trump's, what is being done about tying issue of persecution of Christians in China to this economic deal. Very clearly from a lot of our Christian and Jewish readers is they want to see that President Trump would make it a condition that there would not be business done with any country that is persecuting Christians and Jews. And also you think about in the broader aspect as well, any human rights violations, the persecution of anyone is not acceptable. And this is a concern that many of our readers are concerned about. So do also pray for President Trump, Vice President Pence, Israel Prime Minister, and all of our leaders. Very challenging times for them. There's a lot of stress that is going on, a lot of hot issues to deal with. And I, with many others, do hope that America will stay great, will be a nation, a shining light on a hill, to be an example of goodness to all nations, that we will be a nation that will be able to bless. This is a concern of a lot of Jews and Christians, that we will be able to bless many nations. And so we have a lot to deal with here, and keep me and your thoughts here at the White House at very challenging times, and it's a blessing to be here.